Welcome to the session today on supporting workers' mental health. So glad you could all join me. I know time is valuable, so I appreciate everybody taking the time out today to come and for this session for sure. And I believe, and I think you guys probably believe, that this is an important session. So any conversation we talk about mental health, it's an important conversation. And I think that most of us, if we're not, or we have been in a place where we need support, and if that's not the case, then we know someone that does need support. So I'm glad you could all join me today. My sidekick, Deanne Feltham-Scott, unfortunately, got sick. She definitely tried her best to make it. I know she's watching online, so all good vibes as I do her part of the presentation as well. So really tapping into my resiliency skills here today, and hopefully you guys will be gracious, knowing that I was supposed to do the first 10 slides and then now I'm doing it all. So anyway, we'll be here for each other for sure. So anytime, I got a clicker, right? Okay, yeah. It's been a while since I presented as well. So anytime that you guys want to take a little stretch break, please feel free. Just, get up and stretch your legs or do whatever you need to do. Stay into the back. Totally comfortable to do that. Wow, I've got a lot going on. I've got my thing, my mic, my notes. We'll see how we can get through this. So my name is Kathy Bear-Brinson. I probably should have started with that. And I'm a senior health and safety advisor with Workplace NL. And I've been working, alongside Deanne with the psychological health and safety file for quite a number of years. I think we first started talking about this topic finally in 2013, which was a great addition to a healthy and safe workplace. And we are not mental health experts. We are not counselors, but we certainly do have a passion for this topic and a passion for supporting our coworkers. So we're glad that you have joined us today. What we're going to talk about today is a very important conversation about, we'll touch on the relationship between mental health and the workplace. And we're mostly going to focus today on having the conversation, are you okay? And that is often a very hard conversation to have. It's not easy, but I will definitely say it is a worthwhile conversation. And we're going to give you a few tips, or I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks today for maybe how to have that conversation and to feel more comfortable to approach somebody that you might feel maybe struggling with their mental health or going through a life challenge where they may need some compassion and care. But we do know that it's not an easy conversation, but you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be an expert in mental health to have that conversation. Generally, I think if you're interested in people and you're interested in caring about people when they're going through a hard time, even if you don't say everything right, I think you're off to a great start for sure. So again, you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be a good friend or a good coworker and a great listener. So we talked a little bit this morning about laughing, but I just want to touch on breathing for a few minutes. So breathe in, breathe out. We do that all day long. We don't even have to think about it, but just take a second to think about when the last time you took a really deep, purposeful breath. I've taken quite a few since Deanne told me that she couldn't make it this morning. But generally, it's kind of something that we just do and we don't really think about it. But when we take a deep breath, it makes such a difference to our mind and our body. So stopping for a second, taking a deep breath, it actually communicates to our brain that it's time to relax. And then our brain sends the message to our body that it's time to relax. And that's a good thing. Good things happen when we breathe deeply. It aids in digestion. So just after having our meal is a good time to take some deep breaths. It slows and calms our nervous system. It can reduce your blood pressure. It definitely lowers stress and anxiety. And all kinds of good things happen when we breathe deep. So paying attention to our breath is at the center of mindfulness, and it really connects us and anchors us to the present moment. So we're going to take a few minutes to do a couple deep breaths with a YouTube video. And I just encourage you to, sometimes people feel a little bit weird about it, but it's just a couple of, I think it's less than a minute. So just really take the time to, take a couple of deep breaths and just notice how it makes your body feel. And remember that your mind is now telling your body that it's time to relax. So, we'll just flick that video on now, and we'll take a couple of deep breaths together.
Just taking a big deep breath into the mouth. As you breathe in, noticing how the body expands. As you breathe out, just watching the body drop. And gently close it. Rather than the mind moving the breath, allow the breath to lead the mind. Notice the sensation of the breath. Notice it where you feel it in the body. If you need to, you can just gently place your hand on the stomach. And just following that rising and falling sensation. Nothing else to do. Allowing thoughts to come and go. And when you're ready, just gently opening the eyes again.
Awesome. So now that I've got you all relaxed, hopefully, and calm, let's look at some not so happy statistics. So I find these statistics really staggering. In 2020, so let's just all realize that was pre-pandemic. Depression became the leading cause of disability worldwide. And that really takes me back, because we know that the period from March 2020 to our current time, people have really, it's been a toll on their mental and physical health. That's a trend in Canada across all ages, genders, education levels, and other demographic factors. So we know that people, half of Canadians actually have reported, over half of Canadians that have reported that since March 2020, their mental health has worsened. 1 in 8 people say that their mental health has gotten better. So COVID's situation did some good things for some people, which we're definitely happy for the 1 in 8. About 33% of Canadians are reporting now that their mental health hasn't changed. But as I said, over half of Canadians are reporting that they feel frustrated, fearful, anxious, and tired. And, that is obviously a very staggering statistic. Pre-pandemic, the numbers were 1 in 3 of Canadians would experience a mental health issue in their lifetime. But now the statistic is, did I say 1 in 3? I meant to say 1 in 5. But the statistic now is 1 in 3. And those are people, of course, that are comfortable to, express that when it comes to surveys. So as I said, those statistics are quite staggering. 70% of all disability costs in Canada now are directly related to mental health. That's not a Workplace NL statistic. That's a Mental Health Commission of Canada. And 500,000 people report that they can't make it to work in a given week because of a mental health issue. So we know that with those statistics that our workplaces are affected by mental health. And we also know that our workplaces affect our mental health. So as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the relationship between the workplace and mental health. As I said, we know that work affects our mental health, and work can actually contribute in a positive way to our mental health. It makes us, more self-confident, obviously more financially secure. And in a workplace where we're recognized for our work and we feel supported and our work is challenging but achievable, that's usually very good for someone's mental health. But work can also negatively affect our mental health. And psychological hazards in the workplace are not as easy to see maybe as some physical hazards in our workplace, such as like tripping hazards or broken equipment, missing guards, that kind of thing. Interactions between people and, psychological hazards are often harder to see, but they are very impacting. Some examples of psychological hazards could be more work for extended periods of time than you can actually do. So, in work, generally, we have, peaks of busy seasons, not so busy, regular type workload. And that generally is okay. People can kind of flow with that. But it starts to affect us in a negative way and generally our mental health if our workload is very high for a very extended period of time. And lots of time, there's no end in sight. And I'm sure a lot of us have experienced that in our lifetime. Other things could be, doing a really good job and never being recognized or appreciated for the work that you do, or struggling with the ability to manage your work life at home and then your work life and your home life. As we know, individuals are responsible for their own mental health and well-being and our own physical health and well-being. But there are, whether in or outside of the workplace, but we know that there are some, factors that contribute to our mental health, such as genetics or, financial situations, family relationships. But those factors obviously affect our work as well. An employer, while those things are outside of their control, they do have a responsibility to ensure that they do no harm. So what that really means is that an employer should intentionally ensure that psychological hazards are either taken out of the workplace or controlled in the workplace. And those interactions, that cause psychological harm to people, employers have the responsibility to make sure that they do deal with those things like harassment or disrespect or, again, workload management. So employers are responsible to do no harm. We should be able to go home at the end of the day feeling well physically and feeling well mentally. So that might, mean that we need a little rest. We might feel a little tired after a hard day work or a long day, but we should be able to continue on with our day-to-day activities. We should be able to engage in the things that we love. Work shouldn't zap us physically and emotionally so that we can't do those things. We all have mental health. And if Deanne was here today, she would probably say there is no health without mental health. And that is so true. As per the World Health Organization, mental health is one's ability to cope with the day-to-day stressors of life and to be able to function in their, day-to-day activities, contribute and be fruitful with their circle of influence. The definition of mental health doesn't refer to happiness, but more it refers to how we deal with our stresses and the things that come up in our life, and if we're able to be effective in the things that we need to do. Mental health and mental illness, we find that you guys probably find this as well, that they're often used really interchangeably. Those terms are used interchangeably, but they're really not quite the same thing. So as I said, mental health is one's ability to, their mindset and their ability to function in their day-to-day life effectively. Mental illness is something that generally has, more serious symptoms and consequences that comes along with it. And, it affects how people think, how they feel, how they react, and how they behave throughout their life. So mental illness is very treatable. And what we know is that early treatment and recognition of those symptoms really help the diagnosis and really help you to be able to work through those illnesses. So one of the things that we know that people that struggle with a mental health or live with a mental health issue or a mental illness deal with is stigma. And the lives of people who have a mental health condition are often plagued with stigma. And it's that negative stereotype or grouping people based on something that they're dealing with in their life. Discrimination is unfair treatment based on somebody's identity. Generally, there are 3 types of stigma that relate to mental illness or mental health in the workplace or just in general. Public stigma, which is the general public's view of mental health. And a lot of those views have derived from media and movies and, all those kind of things that we have in the general public. And then we have self-stigma, which is somebody who is struggling with a mental health issue, and it's the stigma they place on themselves. Perhaps they have adopted the public stigma of mental health, and they've attached that to themselves. And then we have structural, which is policies and procedures that really stigmatize certain groups of people. I remember when I started, presenting about mental health in the workplace, I guess it was back in 2013. And I was doing a session at the Holiday Inn. And at the time, I hadn't heard this before. I've heard it lots since, but it just really struck me and it's really stayed with me. And every time I hear this phrase, it brings me right back to that day. But this participant that was in the session was sharing with the group about her, she had lived with depression. And she talked about how that affected her work and how people viewed her. And she talked about how she had to go off for a period of time because of a mental illness. And at the same time, a coworker was off work with cancer. And she said, the coworker that was off with cancer, they sent cards and meals and they set up a Facebook page. And, we're always sending her well wishes. But she said, nobody reached out to her. Everybody thought, oh, maybe it's better not to. We don't know what to say. And she said, the stigma that I live with is worse than the actual mental illness. And that really struck me that day because I guess I hadn't really had to think about it that much. And it made me take that time to think about it. And it was very impacting to me. And I've certainly, tried to work on things that I may have, issues with biases or stigma as well. And, that was very impacting to realize that that may be the case for many, many people. So you can't leave your mental health at home. So when you're not feeling well, when you have a cold or a broken bone and you come to work with that. And it's just like your mental health. You do have to come to work with your mental health. You can't leave it home. So it's very important that an employer has a supportive workplace where you can feel supported and cared for, and there is a culture where you're okay to talk about your mental health and people are okay to ask you how you're doing. I'm just going to read you this scenario. My coworker seems distracted and unsettled every day. They look tired and upset. I would like to ask them if they're okay, but I'm worried that I'll say the wrong thing and upset them even more. I think we can all relate to that situation. And I think because we spend so many hours in our workplace, often it is the coworkers that may see the symptoms or the warning signs of an employee struggling, even maybe more than friends or sometimes even family. So as I said, I think that's a scenario that we can all relate to. And we're going to come back to that scenario in just a little bit and maybe talk through some ways that can be approached in a very positive way. So there's so many different life situations that can put someone at psychological risk. A number, I have a bunch listed here. So I guess the reason why we want to share this is, I guess it is sort of self-explanatory, but if you have a coworker or a friend or someone in your life who's dealing with one or two of these life situations, they may be more at risk for struggling with their mental health. Not always. People can have these life circumstances and still be mentally healthy and strong and well. But at times they can put someone at psychological risk. So if you do know of a coworker or a friend that may have, some of these things happening in their life, then you may just want to check in on them and just be aware of that. It does, again, you don't have to make assumptions that they are struggling, but it's certainly some of the things that you might want to consider. So some of the things that I meant to make these just one click. I'm going to click right through them. So some of the things that you may want to look for when it comes to people's personal reactions or behaviors is really you want to look for a change in someone's normal demeanor, normal activity, the way they normally interact at work. So obviously we're all very different and we have very different personalities. Some people are more quiet, outgoing. But if you see a change in your coworkers, then that could signify at times that, they may be struggling and you may want to have reason to check in. So when it comes to personal reasons, they may be, oh, can I go back? Yes. They may be confused or maybe even more irrational than they would normally be. They might be feeling overly critical of themselves or others. They may, mention that they feel lonely, or they may even be isolating themselves. Also, they might be having a lack of motivation for the things that they normally like in life. So if someone generally is, a hiking fanatic, and it's been a long, long time since, they've been for a hike, and you see other factors in their demeanor that might indicate they're struggling, then, that may be a good time to check in on someone. When it comes to work, somebody who doesn't generally miss deadlines and all of a sudden they're missing deadlines, or they lack motivation, or the care that they put into work has changed, the detail that they put into work. Sometimes, it's easy to be frustrated with our coworkers or, our staff if they're not living up to what we need them to. But sometimes those are real indications that they may be struggling with more than just, with work and not being totally focused on the work that they have to do. So if that's the case, if you know that someone maybe has been possibly experiencing some of those psychological risks, or if you've noticed some changes in the way that they conduct themselves at work, you may want to reach out, and you're probably wondering how you can help. Well, as we said, you don't have to be a counselor to help a coworker. Often people are their own experts on what they can actually do to help their mental health and help them feel better. Sometimes just having that conversation can spark them. They might, okay, so obviously this is, other people are noticing. So, maybe I need to take care of this, or to look at what I can do to maybe feel better. So help can look like a lot of different things, but generally creating a culture in your workplace where you can talk about mental health and where people are willing to listen is a really good starting point. Supporting someone with a mental health issue isn't about fixing them. And that's really important to remember. First of all, that's way too much pressure on one individual. You're not trying to fix them or fix their problem, but instead you want to just be supportive. You want to be a good listener. And sometimes those simplest gestures can really, really help. So if you do see someone struggling and you decide that you're the right person, or you're going to reach out, you feel like you do want to check in with them, we'll just talk about some ways to prepare yourself for that. And I said, if you're genuinely interested in how somebody's doing, I don't think you can really go wrong. I think people can sense that from you, but certainly, be ready for that conversation. Prepare yourself to get any kind of response, to maybe hear something that you don't agree with. And just remember that you're not trying to fix them or rescue them, but you are just checking in and hopefully, pointing them to some really good help. So a really good way and simple way, I guess, to even create this culture for your workplace so that workers feel comfortable checking in on each other is to talk about mental health, to make it a discussion, to let employees know that their mental health does matter, and create that culture of acceptance. So a really great question to start with is, are you okay? Are you doing okay? So you've noticed that someone is not quite themselves. And, it's a really great question to ask. And again, be prepared for the no, I'm not okay. And then, you kind of want to build on that. If somebody says, no, I'm not, then from there, you want to know where you're going. And here's some suggestions for some good things to follow up with that is like, well, what's been happening with you lately? How long have you been feeling like this? And just encourage them, I'm here to talk if you need to talk. And those are some ways to kind of keep the conversation going and to open up that conversation so they feel comfortable with continuing on with the conversation. Or they may say, yes, I'm fine. And we certainly don't want to push anyone to talk who isn't ready or isn't comfortable with you to talk with, and that's perfectly fine. But if you sense that, the yes, I'm fine, but that they're really not, maybe you could just remind them that, you don't seem yourself lately. I didn't know if you had anything on the go, just wanted to check in with you. I'm always here to chat. And, if not, is there someone else that you would like to chat with? So just in case you feel that the yes, I'm fine is not really accurate. And you know what? Either way, you have hopefully opened the door for someone to reach out to you, for someone to feel comfortable talking to you. And if you were wrong and everything is okay, then that's okay. You've just let one of your friends or your coworkers at work know that people do care about them and they're checking in on them. So mindset is everything. So you want to have the right mindset. You want to come into the conversation with a really supportive stance. People will address their life challenges when they are ready. So you don't want to feel again like you're forcing someone or you're going to, make them fix this problem, but you just really want to be a good listener, and you want to put them on or help them maybe get on a healing journey. And you're just really one part of that. Either way, you're doing the right thing by asking and having a good mindset around that. And you probably need to ask yourself, are you really willing to listen? So no matter what they come at you with, because it could be a lot. It could be a lot for you to handle and to hear. You might not agree with some of the things that they're doing or saying, but you really need to be willing to genuinely listen. And the best way to listen is to do that. Listen only. So don't prepare your response. Don't think about, okay, well, when they're finished, I'm going to say this or interrupt them. I'm actually terrible for that. I'll be the first to admit. I think I do it because I want to make them feel like I relate to them and I know what they're saying and I want to help them along. But it's so much better just to listen and to just let them finish what they have to say and really be prepared to listen. And also to be willing to not judge. So as humans, I think we all judge. When we see people, we formulate opinions on them based on their looks, their appearance, maybe how they introduce themselves, what they say. And that's really hard not to do. But what we want to do is not resist the tendency to bring those judgments into the conversation. You want to let them feel like whatever it is that they have to say, you're willing to listen to, and you're willing to hear them and to be there and to be a supportive person for them. Deanne calls it the power of the pause. I'm not sure if she came up with that herself or if she got it from somewhere. But generally, when someone is experiencing distress, their minds are probably distracted and they probably have a million things going through their heads. So when you first approach them and say, "Are you okay?" If they don't respond right away or they kind of hesitate or, "Yeah, I'm fine," or, but you kind of feel like they have more to say, it's okay to just pause and to just wait and let them collect their thoughts. And that's uncomfortable. I like if I paused right now, if I stopped talking and just stared out, we would all in seconds be uncomfortable. Wouldn't we? It would be so awkward. You guys be awkward. I would be awkward. And it is awkward, but sometimes we just need that. Sometimes somebody just needs you to just take a pause and just give them a second to collect their thoughts, to know that you're there and that, you're not trying to fill the space with words, but you're okay to hear what they have to say. And that is generally really hard. I've had a lot of life lessons over the past couple of years where I've had to definitely do that. I guess I've talked about this, as I said, since 2013, and it's definitely always been I'm very interested in, I'm passionate about it. But in the past year, I've had a very close person go through a mental health crisis. And my perspective on all of this is very different. I say all this so much more humbly and cautiously because I know that when someone is truly struggling, it does not come in a neat and tidy package. And yeah, so I've learned to pause and to let people, and I'm still learning. I'm still not that great at it sometimes. And then you want to, so when you've had that conversation and, you know, you're asking someone how they're doing and they're talking to you, we really want to then encourage them to action. So talking is great, listening is great. But if somebody is struggling with their mental health, then we really want to help them, lead them toward, certainly not force them, but lead them toward an action that will get them in a more mentally well place. So some of the things that you can ask them, one thing that I have learned that kind of really helps is like, so when you felt like this in the past, what have you done? Like what helps you? What gets you out of feeling, you know, maybe a little bit down or, you know, not having a great time? And how would you like me to support you? How can I support you? Can I check back in? You know, can I refer, you know, pass along some great resources that I'm aware of? You know, when I'm having a difficult time, this is what I've done. So those kind of things, like generally, you know, you get them thinking about action. They may not be ready to take that action, and that's okay. People will, as I said, deal with their serious life situations when they are ready. But you're really just reminding them that, you know, to take some steps, that maybe just to try a couple of things and see if maybe they can move themselves to a more healthy and well place, which is, of course, if you're having this conversation, what your ultimate goal is. So you might want to identify the supports and connect people with those supports. And there's a lot of really great resources these days, especially since COVID, and they're so accessible for people. And we will go through a few at the end. But, you know, it is important to identify those supports for people. So if you know, hopefully you work in a workplace that's proactive and they've shared the resources and they're, you know, easily accessible right in the workplace. And if not, the community at large has so many really easy and accessible resources for people who might be struggling. Now, I know that there's a lack of support in lots of ways when it comes to mental health, but there are some good resources that we can certainly point people to. And again, don't insist on people using these supports. Again, they need to do that when they're ready. And the worst thing someone needs to feel is that you're just pushing them toward something that they're maybe not comfortable with. And the other thing is to check in. So after you've had the conversation, like I have a really bad memory. Like even if I really care about something, I could very quickly just get caught up in other things and forget. So if you're that kind of person, jot a little note in your agenda, like check in on, I'll say Joanne, because Joanne's going to help me now in a minute, you know, next week or whatever. And just ask them like, do you mind if I check in with you like again? And we could just like kind of follow up on this conversation or, you know, just you can check in with me if you want. But it's really important to follow up that conversation with a check-in. So I guess if we were to think about the steps of having a conversation with a coworker or someone in your life that you feel is struggling, you want to just make yourself ready. You want to make sure that you're okay to have that conversation. If you're feeling stressed or anxious or overwhelmed yourself, then maybe it's not the best time for you. Maybe you might want to say to another trusted coworker, like I've noticed that, you know, our friend seems not to be herself. I'm not doing that great myself either. Would you mind checking in on her? I think somebody should probably just check in and see if she's okay. And then, so you want to have that conversation, be ready and willing to listen, not to judge whatever it is that they say. You could get all kinds of things that you know, you're not comfortable hearing or that you haven't heard before, but you really want to make them feel comfortable and make sure that you then link them to some good supports. And then do your follow-up and your check-in after the fact. So, you know, check in on them. If they're really struggling, if you really sense that they could be in some kind of like crisis and it's, you know, it's not serious enough to call the 811 line, which we will talk about, then, you may want to check in with them maybe even the next day or the day after, or pop them a text after work or something like that. But make sure you do follow up. Genuine care and concern really make a difference when somebody is struggling. And my coworker, Joanne, is going to come on off now and help me. And we're just going to kind of carry you through a little role play of what maybe a conversation like this could look like. And again, it's not always an easy conversation, but it's an important one.
Dennis, I hear you.
Yeah, it's bright. It's really bright.
Yeah, this is on, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we get really into our acting about third
Yeah.
line in. So
We're professionals.
yeah, that's fair. Just bear with us. Hey, Joanne, how are you? What's going on? You seem a little out of sorts these days. Are you okay?
Not really. I find everything's coming at me at once and I'm feeling very overwhelmed. And I don't know when it started, but I don't want to continue on feeling this way, but I
Yeah.
don't know what to do.
Yeah. It sounds like you're dealing with a lot. Have you been feeling this way for a while?
I can't really remember when it started, to be honest. But I don't want it to stay this way,
Hmm.
but it's
Yeah.
life jumbled up.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. I understand you feeling that way because you do have a lot on your plate. Work is a lot, and home life on top of that is a lot. And we've also just all came out of that 2 years of the pandemic. And, that really impacted us and it impacted how we feel. So I completely understand that you're having a hard time. You have a lot of responsibility and that can really feel heavy.
I do have a lot of responsibility.
Mm.
Work, but my home life and juggling everything,
Yeah.
it can be isolating as well because I notice what all the things I do, but not necessarily my family or sometimes work demands are not noticed that way.
Yeah, for
For
sure.
sure.
Well, I'm here for you, right? If you ever want to talk or about this or anything. I know you used to mention to me you used to love to walk on your lunch break. I used to help you clear your mind. Have you been out lately for a walk or?
No, I haven't had the motivation, to be honest. I love walking and getting out in the fresh air, but I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Hmm.
not good.
Well, you know what? Someday maybe we could run out for a lunch break walk or something together, and that might get you back into it, hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
So I know you said you've been feeling like this for a while. A couple of times when I've had like hard times, I've reached out to EAP, or, even just like Bridge the Gap online has some really good, resources and ways to kind of, find your way out of feeling that way. So, I know sometimes that's hard and you might not be ready for it yet, but like just have it in the back of your mind that, it may help. It may help to, you can always talk to me or a friend or whatever, but like a professional just has that, non-biased and neutral approach. So, if you're
Yeah.
really starting to feel like it's a bit too much, like just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I've heard a couple friends of mine have used DAP and they said it really helped them. And I've even looked at the Bridge the Gap website
Yeah.
but I don't know if I'm quite ready for that yet, but I'll check it out. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's understandable. I'm really glad we chatted. I've been really thinking about you a lot lately, and I'm going to check back on you in a couple of days and just see how you're doing.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You take care.
Just take care. And she's doing an awesome job, isn't she?
So, thank you, Joanne. Wow, I have 5 minutes left. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. And I know that was obviously a role play that we got to write the script, but we just wanted to point out a couple of things, like, just starting with the "Are you okay?" My very smart older sister always uses the approach, of validating people and saying, because. So of course you feel that way because life's a lot, because we had a pandemic and we all got stressed, and because, you have a lot on your plate. And it really does just make you feel so good to be validated and know that somebody understands that how you feel is real. And oops, I really got behind on this. So I just want to share some of the supports and resources that we touched on. As hopefully most of you know now, if you have a mental health emergency, we have the 811 line in Newfoundland. So that's really great. So you can call the 811 line for support. And also Lifewise warm line, and the number is there. You can also find that online, of course. Lifewise is a peer support group. I believe they used to be called Channel, if you're familiar with that. But it's peer support, as I said. So when you call, you get on the phone with somebody who has lived experience with mental illness or a mental health a journey. So it's really just a very supportive place to be able to talk and to get some supports for sure. And then, as I said, we have Bridge the Gap. So, most people are aware of Bridge the Gap. They have some really great resources online as well. And there's one for youth and for adults as well. So those are kind of a couple of things to do. Hopefully that gave you. Okay. Hopefully that gave you a little bit more of confidence in approaching somebody to have sometimes. But think about those things again. I don't think you can go wrong. I don't know if it's something I'm doing. Probably it is. Yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Oh. Oopsie. Yeah, exactly, right? Just to test my mental health and my resiliency for sure. So just a couple of things maybe to those are sort of the things maybe to do, and maybe you can practice a little bit like we did with the role play, or just, kind of, some people are very natural at it, but I think that we can all do it. I think we can all talk to somebody and demonstrate our support if we think they're struggling. But some things maybe to avoid is, first of all, don't think you're going to go into it and make everything better. That's a really high standard, and you really don't know what people are dealing with. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't think that you're going to fix the problem. Again, you're just one stepping stone, hopefully, on someone's journey to getting more mentally well if they are struggling. Don't make assumptions, judgments on their behavior. So you may see some behavior that's different, but don't assume that they're struggling with their mental health. That's not really fair to put on someone. Maybe they should be the ones to tell you what it is that's happening. Don't use medical terminology that you've heard online or in reading posts that you're not really familiar with, and it just kind of might make you sound a little unapproachable. And don't force the person to talk. I'll probably don't assume the role of a counselor and force somebody to talk to you. Again, just being really caring and making sure that they understand that you're approachable and that you're willing to listen is the most important thing. And also, don't put yourself at risk. So as I said, if you're not in the greatest place, you might just want to defer it to someone else, or think about that before you do have that conversation. So also take care of yourself. So that's really important. It's very hard to help other people if you yourself are struggling. So that could be your family, your friends, or your coworkers for sure. So just really focus on self-care, finding out really what helps you to feel good. And for me, it's really getting outside. I walk my dogs a lot. I'm glad I have 2 dogs that have to be walked, because it forces me to go no matter what the weather usually. And I think it's the walk, but it's also just the fresh air for me. And I always do feel better. So, sometimes it's so hard to do that. Like, you don't really want to do what makes you feel good, but, in the end, it's worth it. And sometimes self-care is like that. It's hard to actually take the time to do it, but it is good for you. And if I had time, I would love to hear what everybody here does for self-care, but I just got the 2-minute sign. So anyway, in summary, we really wanted to focus today. Like we've talked a lot about psychological health and safety and what the employer's responsibilities are and what the psychological hazards are, what the standard has to say. And all of that is really super important. And if you, want more information on that, please reach out to us and we would love to talk to you about that. But we really just, in most presentations that we get, people say, but how do I help my coworker? Like, how do I talk to my coworker? So we really wanted to just sort of stay there today and, kind of stay with like what you can do as a coworker or a friend or a loved one to help somebody who, who may be struggling or may be experiencing, an impact to their mental health. So as I said at the beginning, this is a really important conversation. I'm glad that you guys were able to take the time to join me today to talk about this. So I think we have a couple minutes for questions if anybody has a question. Okay, they're going to come around with a mic. So right there in the middle.
Question first.
Oh, an online question. Okay.
Yep. So the question is, how does one deal with workplace situation where employees are uncomfortable speaking about mental health with management? Furthermore, how does one deal with a situation where management are contributing to a poor mental health work environment? Management does not recognize mental health as a legitimate concern.
Okay, that is a really big, big question. And it's a multifaceted answer. It is very challenging when you're in a workplace where the support doesn't come from the top. That is very challenging. I think that there are, as I said, there's so many things that need to be done there and talked about, but probably just even though it's hard to have the conversation about mental health, maybe just mentioning, things like there's, Workplace NL does some free training. I know, other organizations right now are doing a lot of really great training on mental health and, just approach it that, this is important and employers have a responsibility. So, maybe just start the conversation there. And then amongst the coworkers, build a supportive network and, get us in to help you. That's what I would like to say. So we can talk to your management. And that is actually something we do. We do talk to a lot of workplaces that struggle for whatever reason. It's not always management's fault that, the workplace is struggling with support. But we do go into a lot of workplaces and have those conversations. And, really education, I guess, is a really great place to start. So I don't really have the greatest answer for that, but I know it is a hard situation for sure. But I think just letting, the employer know that they do have a responsibility and, hopefully letting them sit with that for a while and understand that that is their responsibility. So Kathleen, I think right there in the Oh, also we have a new guide on our website that just got posted this week, and it's how to really take some small steps to integrate psychological health and safety into your health and safety program. So lay that on your manager's desk, print it and lay it on their desk. No, it is actually a really great guide. It's very simplistic. And, psychological health and safety for employers is a very complex and challenging topic. And it is hard to know how to start and how to support employees. So this guide will help you make small changes in your already hopefully developed health and safety program to start incorporating psychological health and safety into your physical health and safety. So we do have that available now as well.
As an employer, if you have an employee that you've noticed is struggling and maybe even identified as struggling, and has also had performance impacted by that, what kind of support can you offer them without either putting more onto the other staff or onto yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a really good question as well. And Actually, what came right to mind is I have this book that is called Disabilities in the Workplace. And just chat with me after and I'll like give you my email so that I can definitely give you the right title and stuff. But that book actually, it's a whole book about how to deal with that. And it's one of the best resources I've ever read. It's written really plainly and, it really talks about accommodating mental illness. And, it definitely starts with having the conversation with the employee and, approaching it the same as you would approach, a physical injury in the workplace, in that you talk about the functional abilities, what can you do, and then you work from there. But definitely, I think, knowing that they're supported and knowing that you intend to support them is a really good place to start. But that book is actually really the best I've ever read. So I'd love to share that resource with you.
I just wanted to add to the first question.
Yeah.
You said to give us a call, and I think that's great advice because as you just demonstrated here, you have all these resources that
So
you
true.
can think of it if you contact us, and if you don't contact Kathy, you contact
Yeah,
anybody in
absolutely.
prevention, and we'll get you to the right people.
Mhm.
And we do have a lot of back pocket resources that are little hidden gems that are really helpful. So just wanted to
Absolutely.
add that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. Supporting me. Okay. So I'm not sure what's on the agenda next. I was in the coat room practicing all morning. Deanne's part of the presentation, so I'm not even sure if I saw the agenda today. So there's a break now? Okay, perfect. So there's a break now and the next session is at 2:30. So whatever session you have should be, oh, it's all back here. It's all back here, right? I was on the planning committee, but my mind is blank about that stuff now. So anyway, I would love to, if any of you like have any other questions or you'd like to connect about this topic, like, grab me throughout the rest of the day, or you can certainly just reach out to us, when you get back to your offices or your workplaces. All right. Thanks a lot.